Okay, I've got something for you. The new parts have been fitted to the car. The simulation numbers are good, so look forward to your feedback. Check out the details.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 Career Mode, episode number 97 today for the USA Grand Prix in Season 5. If you have missed the last part, episode number 96, uploaded yesterday, be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. We start things off with our new part fitted to the car, which was a chassis weight reduction and also a durability upgrade to the car, I believe, as well. But this is a bit of a weird episode, really, to kick things off, really, because if you didn't know and you don't follow me on social media, on Twitter or on Instagram, you may not have seen, I was actually away for the last 4 days at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, so this is like the first video I am recording now for like 4 days time, so a bit of a weird kind of a case of kind of dusting off the cobwebs. Even now, just recording the commentary, a little bit odd having to do the commentary again, after 4 days of not doing any of it like that, so bear with us. There might be a few little mistakes here and there in this video as we get back into the swing of things, but I'm so ready now to hit the ground running and get back to making videos like on the day I'm making it, because it was kind of odd not making videos for 4 days but still having them go up on the channel, obviously. But you wouldn't have known that, you wouldn't have probably even realized that unless you follow me on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. But if before you ask, yes, there is a vlog coming from my little trip to Abu Dhabi. That'll be coming at some point during the next week, I would think. But we're gonna get things moving on for the rest of this episode then, and we're gonna swing into the practice. Obviously, as I said, dusting off the cobwebs, trying to get back into the swing of things on this game after having not played it for at least 5 days. And USA, probably one of the trickier circuits to come back to get back into the game, really, because especially after last season, Season 4 was a very tricky Grand Prix for me around COTA. With the Red Bull car, just didn't ever feel very comfortable. The car was sliding around everywhere in practice. I will admit I used the same setup as I did in Season 3, so that probably didn't help it, whereas this time around I played around with a bit more. Obviously, the Force India is a very different car to the Red Bull car. I mentioned this before. The Red Bull seemed very, very snappy on the front end. The nose will turn in instantly, whereas the Force India lacking a tiny bit of downforce in that kind of aspect of the car, so a little bit less kind of pointy, but also at the same time smoother on the rear end. And obviously tyre wear has been a very good factor and advantage of this car, so maybe that will help us out, because in Season 4 we did a 2-stop. In Season 5 here, I think we may even be definitely going for a 1-stop. I think it's definitely possible and maybe the better way to go for us today, but we're going to just have to see about that. But we go through practice, obviously still trying to get as many practice points as we can, resource points I should say. Obviously we've only got a couple of episodes left in this season, but we'll still push on. We've got some engine upgrades we can kind of do, some minor ones, which will still help us push on. And of course, after the last episode, Renault have come out of nowhere to be really a quite good contender for the Constructors' Championship. It looks like maybe at the moment we're okay for the drivers, but we still have to do the job against Kimi Raikkonen. But in the Constructors, Renault have come out of nowhere to be a third contender, along with Ferrari and obviously ourselves in Force India. So we're going to still have to kind of keep our eyes on that and keep the throttle down, as it were, on the kind of progress we're trying to make with this car, myself and Sergio Perez. So we quite rapidly went through Q1 then, and now into Q2, going through the final corner. You can see kind of maybe what I mean by the front end not being very pointy, but the car being quite smooth. I'm having to almost wait for the car to feel like it's turning in to these final few corners in Sector 3, and so it's not as as fast as it kind of should feel, perhaps, but at the same time the lap time is still there, and we're coming through into Q2 then, into the top 10 shootout, just ahead of Hulkenberg. And I was surprised at how Hulkenberg was performing there compared to Jolly and Palmer, and just in general the Renault car has been so strong. I mean, literally I just mentioned how good the Renault has been, surprisingly, so kind of odd to see the two Renaults down there, but I suspect maybe they're yet to turn up the wick. But the two Red Bull cars looking as controlled as ever and as strong as ever in this second half of the season. Kind of a shame for Red Bull as a whole, as a team, that they haven't really shown up in the first half. Otherwise they probably would have also been in this championship hunt, and there could have been a four-way scrap for the championship, which would have been kind of crazy. But we go through Q3 then onto our lap, and pretty good first sector, and once again kind of going a little bit wide, unfortunately, there on the second last corner, and then through the final corner a little bit more snappier on the front end this time compared to the Q2 lap. But it's going to be an improvement on a lap time from Q2 and our best lap time overall on the Saturday, but unfortunately you can see way off the pace there in P10, and it's going to be a Red Bull 1-2 lockout for the front row. Really surprising to see only Hulkenberg managing 5th place, because I really thought he would have been right up there, with the pattern he's been showing. Perez does really well, I must say, to be in 6th place right behind Nico, so good to see that at least the car does have potential pace. maybe I just didn't get the best out of myself in Q3, but as I said, it was my best lap time of the weekend, so I think that's more just, like I said, kind of dusting off cobwebs in terms of getting back to the game, and I think I'll probably be getting faster and faster as we go through this race. Literally, these are the first laps I'm doing in 5 days' time, so I think that will be probably the case of me getting faster and faster in the race, which is going to be a good thing, for the race pace, I should say. So we'll see how it goes. Let's go to the full grid then, see if there's any penalties that's going to help us out, perhaps jump up the grid order, and then we'll get into the race.
So before the off, let's remind ourselves of yesterday's qualifying session with a look at the starting grid. Young superstar Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez, and Bottas, Palmer, and a Force India, Grosjean, and Daniel Kvyat, Sainz, Ricciardo, Felipe Massa, and Raikkonen, Magnussen, Alonso, Lance Stroll, and Stoffel van Dorn, Wehrlein, and Marcus Ericsson rounds off the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
So we've jumped up and gained 2 positions then, thanks to Daniel Ricciardo and Kimi Raikkonen both having engine penalties, I would guess. So we move up into P8, so that's going to help us out. Unfortunate for Red Bull to then effectively lose their front row lockout, but then Vettel kind of gets promoted. That may make things interesting for Ferrari at least. But you can see the race strategy, as I mentioned, is going to be the one-stop, and I think really in this Force India, that is probably going to be the best bet for us and the fastest way to go about this race. Ultra soft that we qualified on in Q2, obviously, to a set of soft tyres around lap, around lap 9-ish, that will probably be. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe mid-race we might change that, but for now I'm going to commit to that. So here we go then to 5 red lights to round number 17 of Season 5 at the USA Grand Prix. 5 lights have gone out and we're underway. It's a bit of a sluggish start for us compared to the rest of the grid. Bottas making a good getaway, trying to go around the outside there of one of the Renault cars of Nico Hülkenberg. We go on the inside of the other Renault of Jolyon Palmer. Meanwhile, Perez trying his best to get in the fight. Hamilton a little bit slowish, and now he's going to have to defend from his teammate there. Meanwhile, up front, it looks like Verstappen is all clean and away from pole. We have to give Palmer some room in. Hamilton's round. Hamilton's been spun around by his teammate there, and in the background, there's been a huge collision. But I think that's Daniel Ricciardo. I think that's Daniel Ricciardo who had an engine penalty already, and that's going to just add to his misery of this Grand Prix. So the penalty that sent him backwards put him in a position where unfortunately it looks like he's made contact with, I think that was a Haas, I think. Let's look at this spin though. Hamilton actually a shocking start really in reality. I didn't actually realise how bad of a start this must have been then, because he was P3, got shoved off there by Vettel and Hülkenberg, already down to P4, then goes side by side with his teammate Valtteri Bottas. I said they were going to have to go side by side into this section. Looks like Hamilton's the one that lucks out. A little bit of contact there and he loses the back end, and then in front of him the Haas has also lost the back end. And it's an almighty crash there with Ricciardo T-boning the Haas of Grosjean, I think that was. I don't think Ricciardo's out of this Grand Prix. I'm pretty sure Grosjean is, but Ricciardo continues on. But him and Hamilton can be way down the order now. But Hamilton was an odd one. There was just a slight bit of contact, but then it almost looked like Hamilton just overcorrected himself and spun it in Sector 1, so very interesting there, but a huge disaster then for Ricciardo, who probably has lost a bit of his front wing, I would imagine. I'd be very surprised if he has not, so he's going to have a huge recovery job to do from what was a front row of the grid on Saturday there, so unfortunate for him. So we're on the safety car restart. Obviously the safety car did get called out, you would have seen, for obvious reasons, Sector 1 being very tight there, so we're on the restart then. It was an okay one, but Bottas got a bit of a better getaway than us, and now he's on the back of Nico Hülkenberg down the inside. He's kind of pushed Hülkenberg wide. That sends us into a bit of a lockup as I get a bit too close to Nico, as more than I was thinking. And behind us, the Ferrari goes side by side with the Toro Rosso car. So Raikkonen seemingly struggling to try and get past the Toro Rossos. We try and feed it around the outside of Bottas as he's been pushed out by Hülkenberg, and in doing so, we go too wide off circuit. And Jolyon Palmer tries to fancy a move on as we have to fight him back and re-overtake him then. So it didn't quite work out. So trying to be opportunistic by Bottas and Hülkenberg scrapping doesn't work out. We have to be patient until the next lap 5 now. And so here we go in a straight line. My engineer's asking me for a change in strategy. We'll just accept whatever the hell he's given us, because at the moment we're going to try and overtake Bottas to the outside. We thought about for a split second to go to the left, but then darted to the right hand side, and it might work out because we're now on the inside as we enter Sector 3. We'll try and shove Bottas off on the left. left like Hulkenberg did, and literally it's a copycat move actually, the one that Hulkenberg made, and we're up into P2 then. So Verstappen is leading the way, and Hulkenberg has already made his first pit stop then, because we're up into P2. We were trying to fight for P3 previously, so Hulkenberg, that's why he's not there anymore. He's already made a pit stop, so he's coming very early, and he's on a definite 2-stop. And as we move on to the end of lap 7, locking up into the last corner, so not helping the tyres that much there, but in rich mix across the line, and now we're going to be up into P1 as Verstappen makes his pit stop. So very, very early pit stop then for Hulkenberg, and so the Renault guys maybe kind of completely committing to a very aggressive 2-stop, whereas maybe Red Bull weren't too sure what to do. Meanwhile then we move on to later on in the race. This is Verstappen trying to overtake the Toro Rosso car. His teammate Ricciardo, who is up ahead, is already overtaken the Toro Rosso, so he's recovering from his obviously his lap 1 crash. But a 3-wide moment then between the Ferrari, Red Bull and Toro Rosso car. Vettel, that is, down the inside of Verstappen to try and take the place away from him. He's on super softs then. Verstappen has opted for a second set of ultra softs, so Red Bull going very aggressive, whereas Ferrari thinking maybe they have too bad of a tyre wear to make that work. And I think that's been the case before. We've seen many times before that Ferrari have maybe not been able to take it as long as the Red Bull guys. The Red Bull guys countless times, especially Verstappen especially, has taken his tyres very, very long. So many times he's kind of extended his ultra soft as long as others extend their super soft. So Max looking to do that again. He's going to try and feed it to the outside end of this Haas. Up ahead is the Toro Rosso car. That's Ricciardo, my bad, actually. And Verstappen's trying to follow them through. So both Red Bull cars kind of in a formation, trying to work as a team to try and get past this traffic. But side by side in the S's, and Ricciardo's going to get shoved off wide, and he ends up losing 2 positions rather than gaining 1. So unfortunately there, Ricciardo trying to do his best to recover from lap 1, and he's now been overtaken by his teammate then, and Vettel closes up on super softs. And meanwhile that is Hulkenberg then trying to catch up. So it looks like Hulkenberg, although he did have 2 laps of undercut effectively on the Red Bull cars, he hasn't made it work. Meanwhile though, this is Sergio Perez going around the outside of Felipe Massa then. He's on the super softs, Perez on the ultra softs down the inside then for the next part in sector 3, and pretty much another copycat move in that right-hander, like I did on Valtteri Bottas, like Hulkenberg did on Valtteri Bottas. Looks like so far in Season 5, that is the place where all the overtakes are being made at the USA Grand Prix. So Perez is up and away, and he's on his way in clean air in second place there, and you can see I'm in first. So at the moment it's a 1-2 for Force India, and we come in now on lap 11 and on towards lap 12 as we cross the line then. So Perez though, he's making a 2-stop, I'm pretty sure. So he's just gone past us. Now he's leading the Grand Prix, but he's going to have to make another pit stop now. I am not. This is my one and only pit stop. So as we go down to what is, I can't quite see that on the top left, P10 I think that is, outside the top 10. Eventually, Perez is going to make his second pit stop of the afternoon and fall back behind us. But as you can see, as we crawl up towards turn 1 and on the mini-map, we've got a fair few cars right in front of us, including Raikkonen, our main championship rival, and we've got to try and get past them. If we get held up too much whilst trying to get past them, Perez may be able to just about come out ahead of us once he makes his second pit stop of the afternoon. So that is going to be the one worry really from all this. Apart from that, I think our strategy is going to work out very well, and we're looking on for a very strong podium actually from what was P10 on the grid on Saturday, remember, then obviously 2 places gained with penalties. So we're already up into P9 then as a few people make their pit stops, and you can see on lap 13 Perez is behind us on lap 10, and we're trying to make these overtakes. So actually I didn't even catch up to this train of cars, 5 cars even, of you can see 2 cars go side by side ahead of us as we try and make the move on Kimi Raikkonen around the outside. Then it's Hulkenberg, I think, that is fighting his teammate as we try and still hang this around the outside of Kimi Raikkonen, our championship rival. This is a crucial move down the inside to slot it in just ahead of him and behind Valtteri Bottas, and we're up into P8. But very thankful indeed then that I didn't even catch these cars by the time Perez made his pit stop, so that makes my job a little bit easier. But we do close up to Valtteri Bottas now, and that may be a bit of an issue. We need to try and get past him. Magnussen comes in, we try and go around the outside, and here we go, already getting held up a little bit as Bottas goes very slow through the final corner, and we lose some time there. But rich mix flowing, and we're going to get away from Raikkonen as we go down the main straight onto lap 14. Then we're going to make a darting move to the inside to try and get this done as early as possible, as I want to try and chase after these Renault cars. If these Renaults finish as strong as they are at the moment, they're going to be a real tough team to try and beat in the constructors. Obviously at the moment they're already leading the championship in the constructors standing, so I need to try my best to try and get past Bottas and then move on to them and maybe try and hold them up to maybe help Perez kind of catch back up, or maybe hope one of the Ferraris can come back up, because a very weird dynamic really, honestly, having 3 different teams teams in the constructors fight, and having one of them so much stronger than the other two, that being Renault, obviously, they're looking so much better than the Force India car, both of us Force Indias and the two Ferraris are at the moment, as you would say. But we move on to lap 16 though, and my worries start to go away a little bit, because now we're up into P3. As we move on to onto the end of lap 16, through the final corner then, it's going to be another pit stop then for Hulkenberg, and we're going to be up into P1. Verstappen pits as well, and actually we're up into first place. Sergio Perez into P2. He's already made his second pit stop of the afternoon, so somehow, I honestly don't know how, but somehow it's a 1-2 for Force India, and it's actually a legit 1-2, because we've both made our second pit stops. We both made our last pit stops of the afternoon, I should say, sorry. And so we're going 1-2 to the end of this Grand Prix. So it's a case of, can these guys who are fighting very hard against each other, as Verstappen goes down the inside of Bottas, you've got Raikkonen, I think that is, or Vettel, right up there shoved, and they're going side by side. Verstappen gets shoved off on the curbing. Ahead of him, Hulkenberg goes well, and Palmer as well. And so these guys are fighting so hard. So it's a question of these guys, are they going to have enough time to catch myself and Perez, or are they going to be too busy fighting each other's round? Raikkonen goes down the inside of Verstappen, then shoves him off through the final corner, and now Ricciardo is closing up with Verstappen as well. So Verstappen looks to have maybe some sort of issues in the car, as Ricciardo is right up his gearbox then, and look at that, Ricciardo to the outside of turn 1, and that's Ricciardo recovering, remember, from his disaster of lap 1, down the inside of Max, and he's up and away. So Verstappen from pole position and the lead of this Grand Prix, looked comfortable at one stage, is now having major issues in this race. Meanwhile, out in front, the only issues I'm having in this race at the moment is my teammate Perez going for a move to the inside. We try to defend to the inside line. We're going to take the outside instead. That will turn to the inside for the next right-hander though, as we enter sector 3, and so we'll effectively just try and defend our position in the same way we overtook some cars earlier in the race, and we'll keep P1 for now. But Perez is looking very strong, so there may be a question needed to be had to me of, do we just go a little bit easier maybe on Perez to try and secure the 1-2, rather than maybe fight him harder and harder and maybe potentially lose the 1-2 if the cars behind us are going to catch. At the moment though, third place is Felipe Massa, which is a little bit surprising because I don't know how on earth myself, Felipe and Sergio have got into 1, 2 and 3. Really, I would have assumed that these guys would have been so much faster, but no. And more bad news then for Daniel Ricciardo. His race has just gone from worse to absolutely tragic. He's now out of this Grand Prix. Obviously, he already had the lap 1 issue, already tried to make his way back up, and he's actually doing a decent effort to be ahead of his teammate then, Verstappen, and now his race has ended prematurely on lap 20. Meanwhile, though, Perez is going to have another pop now down the main straight. At the moment, we're not in rich mix, but you can see, actually, we've got some decent straight line speed, and for now, he's unable to even make any kind of move, even with DRS then, so doing a decent job. But here is a replay now of Daniel Ricciardo. So he's just going down the main straight. It looks like to be just an engine failure or mechanical failure. He pulls up onto the grass, much like he did in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Unfortunately, just gone by, and that's his race over. So really, really bad day in the office for Ricciardo all weekend, basically. You know, did such a great job in Saturday to be on the front row, and then just absolutely slapped in the face with an engine penalty, then the crash, and now retirement. Yeah, probably one to forget for him. So now we move on and we watch Sebastian Vettel finally overtake third place man Felipe Massa. So he's up into third, and now is the case of Vettel trying to chase us two down, the Force Indians, and Perez goes for a move to the outside. Then we defend to the inside line, obviously usually the line you defend, but Perez goes cleanly around the outside. I just have nothing to answer for him, and honestly, at this stage, he's completely around us and looks to be already getting away from us. So he's got so much more pace. I was definitely holding him up that entire time, and I think it's going to be a case of, to just secure the 1-2, I won't fight him too hard. I mean, you can say, even if I wanted to, look at him, he's already bolting away. He's just got so much more pace in the bag now on the soft tyres. So even if I wanted to fight him, he was just already so much faster as soon as he overtook me. And then meanwhile, behind, issues for Hulkenberg, very weird issue. Tries to overtake Felipe Massa, locks up into turn 1. He already did a good enough job to overtake his teammate Palmer earlier on, but a bit of a weird issue for him then in the closing stages. We move on to lap 24. Virtual safety car was out, as there was another car out this Grand Prix. Can't remember which one it was, but on the get-go then, into the green flag. Trying our best to push on hard. You can see pretty much the gap has remained the same, and you can see now facing a bit of an issue with the tyres, going completely opposite lock. We've been doing a lot of that lately. A lot of saves have been made in this Force India as of late, and as we move on to lap 25, another car is out, so a bit of a deadly Grand Prix really, the USA Grand Prix. Only 15 cars running now, but at the moment still going, myself and Sergio Perez in a decent 1-2 with 4 laps remaining. Hulkenberg now, you can see in the top left, is up into P3. Vettel has made a pit stop, it looks like, a late pit stop, and so Nico's promoted into P3, and Palmer, I think, is up into P4. It might be Felipe Massa, but there is a replay now. So Vettel, I don't know, he's on soft tyres, so he would have probably been trying to go to the end, and so like I mentioned, maybe Ferrari yet again face, tyre issues and have to come in, and meanwhile, this is Hulkenberg across the line. Massa did actually get up into P3 again, but then Hulkenberg ruins that party instantly, makes that move across the line, and he's the one up into the podium positions. But you can see Renault, once again, even, they may have not been 1-2, they may have been previously ahead of myself and Perez, but they're still going well in P3 and P5 it seemingly is, with Palmer behind Felipe Massa. And onto the last lap of the Grand Prix, Hulkenberg actually has so much pace on the super softs, he comes up to try and make a move. So this is me having to defend to try and keep this 1-2 for Force India and keep this second place for a second time in a row from the Japanese Grand Prix to the inside once again this same corner, and we do get the job done. We do defend from Hulkenberg, I guess you could say an emerging rival of ours in the championship, and we go through the final corner. Then it's going to be Sergio Perez to win the USA Grand Prix. We're going to go home in second place. I'm still pretty damn happy with that. It's a 1-2 for our team, Force India. I think the first 1-2 of the season for the Force India team. So that's absolutely freaking fantastic. Absolutely great job there from Sergio. He's been slacking a little bit. Some of you guys were kind of, saying that in the comments below for the Japanese Grand Prix. He's kind of nowhere compared to me, but here he goes then. Great pace, and yeah, maybe I could have fought him a little bit harder, but honestly, you saw there, as soon as he got past me, he bolted away. So he already had so much more pace in the bag, so it would have been kind of wrong of me in a way to kind of just hold him up and potentially kind of get him being overtaken by another car just because I was being a roadblock in the way. So I'd rather get that 1-2 then secured. You can see by the fast lap of the Grand Prix, he had so much more pace. So good job for him, but a great day for us as a team. 1-2 there to be ahead of a 3-4 for Renault. So again, Renault showing to be very, very strong. You can see what I mean by Hulkenberg. Slowly, he may even try and challenge Raikkonen in the championship then, but we take a commanding lead then with 10 points ahead. And in the Constructors, Renault and Force India now are level on points. So the Constructors fight is going to go down to the wire, I think, really, by the rate it's going. Ferrari now, for the first time in a while now, down to third place in the Constructors. So far in the career mode for the first 5 seasons, they've been dominating every single Constructors' Championship they've been in, pretty much, apart from maybe the first two ones with Mercedes kind of being in there. But now Mercedes way down the order in P5 behind Red Bull Racing. So level on points, Renault and Force India. That is going to be a very, very interesting fight. Pendulum swing right now at the moment for Renault coming back at things, but now Force India, we've come back with a 1-2, so it's time for Renault to maybe answer us back next race, and it's the Mexican Grand Prix. Obviously, Perez's home Grand Prix. He won the Mexican Grand Prix back in Season 3, I think it was, if I remember correctly. He's just won the USA Grand Prix. Let's see. Looks like Perez is on a very, very good high going into his home race, but good for us. We beat Hulkenberg in the rivalry, still overall losing the rivalry though, but looks like you can see jump up for the reputation. All the teams loving what we've done so far in P2 then, and obviously getting a 1-2 for the Force India team is a great achievement. So even Ferrari, who hated us earlier on the season, are kind of happy with that performance there, and they jump up in the approval ratings. But now as we move on to the end of the episode then, before we go, time to make an upgrade. We've actually got enough points, exactly 800 on the dot, to purchase a minor engine upgrade, so that's going to come in handy. It's going to be quite a big upgrade actually. You can see on the right hand side on that chart that may just about tip us on to the second fastest in a straight line engine wise on the right hand side, just below Scuderia Ferrari. So that'll be pretty good because we're already ahead of Mercedes, I believe, on the chassis side of things. That's going to be quite a big upgrade actually. And obviously at the Mexican Grand Prix, long straight, that's going to come in handy. So guys, if you hadn't enjoyed that episode, by the way, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been Aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.